the Great British Manufacturing Podcast, brought to you by MTD, MFG and Jefferson.
Hello and welcome to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Coming up on the show this week, we've got news from Express Engineering, Tata Steel, plus plans for a huge food manufacturing research centre, as well as massive investment from Sheffield Forgemasters. Also on the show, we've got a special guest coming up. We'll be welcoming Christopher Greenough, Chief Commercial Officer of Shrewsbury-based SDE Technologies. But before that, Stuart, welcome.
Evening, Joe. How are you doing? I believe you've been on the road this week.
Yeah, as always, busy week. Yeah, I've been to Seco Tools. We're producing their global online event. That's been a big gig for the guys. They've been out most of the week on that. But yeah, Colchester Machine Tools, and I've done a number of podcasts, to be honest with you. So yeah, fairly busy week. But how about yourself?
Yeah, a lot of writing, a couple of press releases, marketing collateral, usual suspects, and but yeah, not moved too much away from home at the moment, Joe. So very jealous.
Yeah, I'd happily swap. But if we let's get straight on with the show. Sheffield Forgemasters, they need no introduction, but massive investment for the Sheffield-based company.
Yeah, fantastic news. As you say, Sheffield Forgemasters bought one of the biggest presses in the world to make forging to the Royal Navy's nuclear submarines. The 13,000-ton press is being shipped from Japan and will replace an aging 10,000-ton main forge press dating back to the 50s. The deal is being supported from a loan from the MOD and a massive vote of confidence in the firm's capabilities.
Yeah, it's good news, that, isn't it? Again, we hear lots of rumours about Forgemasters and steel manufacturers as a whole, really, but that just cements the future of the immediate future of the business.
Oh yeah, the home of steel in Sheffield. So yeah, fantastic news, and it's a 200-year-old company, so great history as well. Yeah,
moving on to Harland and Wolff. These are a very famous company for anyone who's got any sort of Navy background or interest in the Navy. They've just been awarded a major fabrication contract.
Yeah, another historic company, Joe. 160 years of maritime offshore engineering, and they've announced a major contract award by Saipem for 8 wind turbine generator jacket foundations. The work will principally be conducted at Harland Wolff's newly acquired facilities in Scotland. The contract schedule is due to commence in July, and the huge order is expected to create almost 300 direct and indirect jobs.
Yeah, marvellous news. A fun fact, they did a lot of work on the on something called the Titanic, didn't they?
Not heard of it, Joe. I'm sure it's a success, but I've not heard of it.
Yeah. Moving on, Tata Steel, a large investment not too far from our studios, actually, in Corby in Northamptonshire.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme here with steel, so all good news, and especially, Liberty Steel and others have been in the news over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, they're investing £25 million upgrading its steel tube production site in Corby, Northamptonshire, as you say. Work's already actually started at the 150-acre site, which supplies products from anything from sports stadia to iconic skyscrapers such as the Shard in London, using steel made at the company's Port Talbot works. The 2-year investment project will see the creation of a new high-tech warehouse, the relocation and upgrading of a hollow section processing line, and the cold mill. So, yeah, very welcome news.
Yeah, and like you've mentioned a couple of other companies there, it's absolutely fantastic. Since, dare I say it, Brexit, there has been some shortages of steel coming into the country. So the more of it we can make here in the UK, the better, surely.
Without doubt. And we're going to talk about a couple of other companies as well that use an awful lot of steel. And, there has been, I know people say and have comments about buy British and so forth, but the government has given a clear commitment that they are going to source more steel from UK producers, which is, can only be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll break from the latest news at the moment, bring in our guest. I'd like to welcome, you'll know him as Christopher Greenough, Chief Commercial Officer of Shrewsbury-based SDE Technology. He's also the host of the SME Focus, or as I like to call him, Chris G, Mr. Saturday Morning. Welcome.
Well, what an introduction. Thank you, Joe. I need to live up to that now.
Yeah. How are things?
Fantastic. So we're having a busy year. Brexit, the impact and the delays at the ports was a struggle at the start of the year. But March, certainly we had a great month, and I think lots of manufacturers have. So let's hope it's positive going forward for the rest of 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly, for the one person listener who doesn't know who you are, can you just tell them who SD Technology are, and more importantly, who you are?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of SD Technology. We're one of the leading manufacturers of pressings and assemblies in the UK, and we're also the first UK licensee for a new hot form aluminium process. Hot form quench, or HFQ as it's known, is a real game changer. It's going to help with lightweighting, help with cost saving, integrating parts into one pressing. So really exciting. So I've been at the company now, this is my 27th year, man and boy. And I've seen the company grow, and we've got some ambitious plans this year.
Fabulous. Just on that HFQ, just give me a typical example. Where an application, where would we like to see that?
So an application, so it's structural parts, A pillars, B pillars, cant rails, but it's really about integrating parts. So taking 4 parts, 5 parts, multiple parts, making one pressing because we're hot forming. So you don't just save on tooling, you save on process, so you save on cost. So fantastic product.
No, sounds it. And as Joe mentioned, you're the host of the SME Focus Show, which I believe is 6 months old this week and 30 episodes. And I know that you've had ABI Electronics, Venari, My Workwear, CNC Robotics, Bottomless Plastics. It's been incredibly well received, Chris. So do you mind just giving us an overview of that show?
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys invited me to sort of host a pilot show with Oliver North of the Venari Group, who I'd never heard of. Oliver came on, pitches his company, tells me all about what he's doing. We have sort of 15 minutes of chat, introducing the company, talking about relevant topics. So last year was obviously COVID. Back end of last year, we went into Brexit. Now we're looking forward with investment. And it's a great chance to speak to fantastic SME manufacturers in this country. 99% of the companies in the UK are SMEs. We need more support. And really the show, I'm so pleased to be presenting it. It's about presenting fantastic people from our sector. It's really, really fun.
Now, I think one of the things that people like it, and I know that, you know, the way it's advertised and portrayed is it's for manufacturers by manufacturers. I just think it gives that added credibility, doesn't it?
Well, I really enjoy speaking to other professionals within the sector. But we had, for example, Namisha Raja from Nim's Fruit Crisps, who has taken a sort of kitchen product, a kitchen idea that she had, and now she's producing hundreds of thousand bags of crisps, selling into Tesco's and other large manufacturers, and she's doing a fantastic job. And it's taking those news stories that nobody would hear about.
No, absolutely, and there's plenty of those examples. And if you are an SME and you'd like to be featured on the show and meet up with Chris and be featured on the SME Focus Show, please email us at podcast@mtdmfg.com. So yeah, thanks very much for hosting that. And also, Chris, thanks also for submitting an article to MTDMFG, which was extremely well received. And this was your response, a personal response to the demise of the industrial strategy. So would you mind just giving us a bit of background and give some bullet points from the article that you submitted?
Yeah, so really the industrial strategy was released or thought of by the government in 2017, and it was a chance for business and public to feed into the industrial strategy, which was going to be long-term, the 10 pillars that were going to change our manufacturing sector and our economy. And yet 2 years, 3 years down the line, the scheme has been scrapped, and there was nothing to back it up. So it was just the industrial strategy has been parked, the committee has been disbanded, and there's now no clear plan for business to buy into. So really for me, because I spent a lot of time and effort personally and through our company feeding into LEPs, feeding direct into government, feeding to the local chamber, to have some input for all that work from me and lots of other people within our sector to be wasted is a crying shame.
Yeah, what would you like to see happen? You know, it has to be replaced, surely.
It's got to be replaced. It's got to be business-led. And without that long-term roadmap, without that strategy, business will not invest. Business can only invest if we know what to invest with for the long term, because lots of our investment is on capital equipment that will have a 5-10 year payback. And if suddenly the government changes their mind, instead of now all electric, they suddenly scrap all electric, all that investment will be wasted. So we really need government to have business involved and get that strategy started again.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying, because they are doing things, aren't they? Obviously, some of the coronavirus business interruption schemes and loans, and there are tax incentives. It kind of needs wrapping into a product almost, doesn't it? Give it a name, give it a board, put some people's names above the door, and bring back the industrial strategy.
Absolutely. It needs to be a clear plan that everyone has bought into. Because they've had to deal with COVID, they're bringing out very quick fixes, which need to be there, but we need to be looking long term. We need to be looking 5, 10, 15 years ahead.
And is the government listening to the manufacturing community, Chris?
I think they listen to some of the bigger groups. I think they listen to, for example, Make UK, the CBI, but there's not that much interaction directly with SMEs. A lot of the big companies have people who can feed directly into government. A lot of SMEs, where the ideas and the strategy blueprints can come from, are not actually listened to. So they need to have a change. They need to involve large and smaller businesses in those decisions.
Yeah, and without getting too political, what would you like to see? Call it the new industrial strategy. What would you like to see in that document?
Well, it really needs to be all-encompassing. It needs to look, if electric is the way to go, we need more strategy, more infrastructure talks, and we need to look at how business is going to interact. So I haven't got all the answers, but what I do know is it needs to be more business-led than career politicians.
Sure, and starting right back at school levels, STEM engagement, getting the next round of engineers through SDE Technologies door, I guess. In years to come, you're going to need the engineers of the future, and that starts with STEM engagement.
Absolutely, and it also comes from the perception of manufacturing. We need to show that manufacturing has a long-term future in this country and become a career of choice. I've had 27 years, I've had a good long career, and I'm hoping I've got another 27 years ahead.
I'm sure you have. Just back onto the SME focus, moving back a little bit. If you mentioned the crisp manufacturer, and I must admit, I listened to them all, but how do I put it? I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of that production. To be honest with you, it's some business, that is. But do you have any potential favourites, personal favourites?
Well, I do. I like Oliver North because it was the first show. I like Mark Weymouth because I think he does a lot on social media. I like Julian Turner from Westfield Sports Cars because he actually sat in one of his autonomous pods for the interview. So we're trying to mix it up. We're trying to bring different people in. If you want to get involved with the show, please email us. It's fantastic. And the more people we can get, the more business we can promote, the better the manufacturing sector will be. Sure.
And how about you, Stuart? Have you got any personal favourites?
Other than the ones that Chris has mentioned, I particularly like the one you did with William Santos from ABI Electronics. I think what they do, the export successes that they've had for a number of years. And I think that one of his strap lines is "Made in Yorkshire, loved by the world." And he's so passionate about exporting way beyond Europe. And this is, long before Brexit. So I think a lot of SMEs could learn a lot from William at ABI.
Absolutely. And I think his passion came through. He is a serial networker, but with the YouTube videos they created, they're using networking in a completely different way than most manufacturers, and his business is reaping the rewards of that.
Absolutely, yeah. The quality of their content is extraordinary.
Yeah, very, very forward-thinking company, just like yours, Chris. So thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your time. Keep up the good work on the SME Focus. Saturday mornings wouldn't be the same without it. So keep up the good work, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for allowing me to come on.
That's Christopher Greenough.
He's passionate and his knowledge, and he's done it, as they say, he's done it for 27 years, but the amount of time he gives in the evenings, weekends, STEM engagement, he's an extraordinary bloke, he really is, and I'm so pleased that he's the host of SME Focus, Joe.
Absolutely. News, Express Engineering, they've opened a new facility. I know we talked about this probably beginning of the year or end of last year when we heard about it, but it's now open.
Yeah, good news for Gateshead. They manufacture assembly and testing products for the subsea and energy industry. They've opened a 48,000 square foot purpose-built international assembly and test centre. The firm said it will be boosting its team of skilled project engineers and managers to work on the new technologies. And as it continues its development in global markets. So again, they're looking at the export, they're looking at, beyond Europe, which is good in the current climate.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of jobs going up that part of the world, isn't there? It's going to be very competitive.
No, absolutely. And we've had very good news from Nissan in recent months, their commitment to the UK. And the Northeast is very much a hotbed of engineering and manufacturing, Joe, as you say.
Yeah. There's potentially a new one, a food manufacturing research distribution campus in Derby. This has to happen, doesn't it, Stu?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's huge. The site will offer manufacturing facilities, startup units, a potential location for a food manufacturing technology centre. Lots of people behind this: Derby City Council, the region's LEP, Marketing Derby, which lobbies for more investment in the city, all been involved in the plans. And it's called Smart Park, and the intention is to start working this spring, with planned opening and initial occupation by the end of this year, which is very ambitious. And in time, the £300 million development is expected to create 5,000 jobs, which is fantastic news for the East Midlands.
Yeah, moving further down the country, Sartorius, there's investment there. For those who are unaware of the company, who are they? What do they do?
Well, it's another inward investment story, which are always well received on our, MTD and our social media channels, as you know, Joe. They're German-owned. They're a pharmaceutical and lab equipment supplier, and they've opened a multi-million-pound production facility in Hampshire. This year, the firm plans to invest more than €400 million around the world to meet increasing demand from the growing biopharmaceuticals market. And as part of this investment, Sartorius aims to expand this new site. It's already recruiting for new roles, engineers and managers and so forth. And with this new facility in Havant, Sartorius now has 5 locations in the UK and employs over 900 people.
It's a company I hadn't come across, to be perfectly honest with you, until I saw the news that broke. But it's one I'll keep a close eye on now. But
I was surprised how much footprint they had in the UK, I must admit. I'd heard of them, but I didn't realise, as I say, that they employed nearly 1,000 people, which is fantastic.
A company I am aware of, BAE Systems, little old BAE Systems. It just seems to be every week we're talking about these guys, and there's some fantastic news yet again.
Yeah, a couple of updates from BAE. So the bow of HMS Glasgow, the first Type 26 frigate being built for the Royal Navy, is rolled out at BAE's shipyard on the River Clyde. Work is also continuing on the second-in-class HMS Cardiff, with construction to start on the third HMS Belfast later this year. So I think this might be an ongoing saga, Joe.
Yeah.
These anti-submarine warships will replace the Royal Navy's Type 23 frigates by the middle of this decade. And there's also a second story, HMS Anson, the 5th of 7 Astute-class submarines being built for the Royal Navy, has been launched at BAE site in Barrow. A special moment for the Barrow shipyard, which is celebrating its 150th year. So this is a 7,400-ton nuclear-powered submarine, Joe. I'm sure you've got a few of those at home. Will now begin the next phase of its testing commissioning programme before leaving Barrow for sea trials for the Royal Navy next year. Nearly 10,000 people work on the Dreadnought and Astute programmes at BAE. So, yeah, they are going to be in the news once or twice, I think, Joe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible. I'll tell you what I like when you see the pictures of but just before they're put out into the ocean. These things are huge, aren't they? Bigger than hotels, bigger than football stadiums. It's astonishing.
The scale is enormous. And one of the most popular videos we've ever put out over the last few years was, I think it was HMS Audacious, being rolled out of Devonport, from memory. And but yeah, the scale of it, because obviously once it's in the sea, you don't realise it. By the very nature of them, you don't see a lot of the submarine, and it is extraordinary, just the scale of it, the size of it. But what a feat of engineering! It's immense. It really is impressive.
Yeah, and again, another busy week in the world of UK manufacturing, which is fantastic.
And we've not even mentioned the European Super League, Joe. So.
Oh,
it's maybe we should form our own manufacturing Super League, Joe.
Well, without trying to put people off the podcast, I got season tickets at Manchester United, and they're up for renewal. And I felt like posting them back a couple of days ago. I'll be honest with you, but it's
send them back to Mr. Glazer, Joe.
Yeah, I'm sure he could do with the money, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could.
They've come up with the right answer in the end, haven't they? Fantastic for football. But in terms of manufacturing, we can't talk about all these stories. But if you go to either Jefferson's social media accounts, mtdmfg.com, or our social media, you can read more news stories. You can read about the ones we've touched upon on this podcast. But clearly, in a more lengthy manner. So feel free to go and take a look. But there's lots of other news we're not talking about. There's news breaking about recruitment drive at the Lotus Sports Cars as well. So yeah, just another busy week all around, Stu.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure we'll cover Lotus and new factory, and yeah, there's a few stories from Lotus which we'll cover in more depth next week. Yeah,
so appreciate your time as always, Stu. Enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. I'll see you next week.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks to everyone at home for listening, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks for listening to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can find us on Twitter using @MTDMFG and @Jefferson_MFG.